Evening, everybody. Welcome to the meeting of council on Tuesday, the 16th of July, 6:30 p.m. in the chamber in the Civic Centre. My name is Matthew Driscoll and I'm the Mayor. To start the official proceedings, I'd like to acknowledge that we are meeting on Jarrah country, on which the members and elders of the Jarrah community and their forebears have been custodians for many centuries and have performed age-old ceremonies of celebration, initiation and renewal. We acknowledge their living culture and their unique role in the life of this region. Council meetings are audio and video recorded and are made available to the public via electronic media, including YouTube. Welcome everybody in the audience. First item is present. So we have a couple of apologies. We have Councillor Neer, who is an apology, and our CEO, Darren Fuzzard, is also an apology. He's away on holidays, and I welcome our acting CEO, Lisa Knight, she's at my right, and also the Director of Corporate and Community Services, Rosalie Rogers, sitting over there. So welcome. Councillors, is there any declarations of interest or conflicts of interest?
I'd just like to note that I'll be on leave from the 17th of July till the 23rd of August, if governance could note that in the minutes, please, under item 2.
Got that, governance? Thank you. Thanks, councillor. Item 3, declarations of interest or conflicts of interest. Councillor. Yep.
Mayor, I have a conflict with item 7.1 petitioners.
Okay, thank you, councillor. Any other councillors? Just when that item comes up, Councillor McClure, if you could just leave the room. Item 4.1, which is the meeting of council on the 18th of June 24. Have someone move the minutes, please. Councillor Henderson. That moved.
Yeah, I move the minutes of the Mount Alexander Shire Council held on the 18th of June 2024 be confirmed.
Thank you, councillor. Do I have a second of that? Councillor Garner. All those in favour of the motion, raise your hand. Motion carried. Thank you. Next item is acknowledgements, item 5.1, which have a veil. Councillor McClure.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm pleased to do this. It's a sad occasion, but when I was a lot younger than what I am now, but he was a great teacher. The Mayor and councillors and staff of Mount Alexander Shire extend our sincere condolences to the Singleton family and friends following the recent passing of Barry. Barry was a renowned local ceramicist, advocate for studio pottery, lecturer, advisor to the Castlemaine Art Gallery and Historical Museum and the Art Gallery of Ballarat. Barry's work has been forefront of ceramics with numerous exhibitions in Melbourne, Adelaide and regional Victoria, with work represented in Bendigo, Castlemaine, Shepparton and the Sale Art Galleries, the Victorian Ceramics Group Collection, the Myer Bicentennial Collection and private collections in Australia and internationally. Barry was also a much-loved teacher at the Castlemaine Technical College. In 1967, Barry and his wife Bev came to live in Castlemaine, where Barry was head of the art department. His influence inspired many to take up art and ceramics themselves. He retired in 1993. Our thoughts are with his family and loved ones. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor McClure. That was for a veil for Barry Singleton. We have another veil. Councillor Henderson.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, valet to Councillor Rod Fife, OAM. The Mayor, councillors and staff at Mount Alexander Shire Council extend our sincere condolences to the Fife family following the passing of City of Greater Bendigo former Mayor and long-time councillor Rod Fife, OAM. Rod was Mayor of the City of Greater Bendigo 4 times, Deputy Mayor twice, and he worked with 12 mayors, 12 CEOs, and was a councillor through the introduction of 3 local government acts. In total, Rod served as councillor and acted on behalf of his community for 38 years. And of course, those who visited Bendigo or knew Rod in any way, they knew him as the Mayor with the hair. because he had flowing white locks, which he proudly displayed. He also, when he was mayor, he used to walk around the town with his mayoral robe on, I remember, sort of billowing out behind him. He was very flamboyant character, but he was also very serious and passionate worker as a councillor. Mount Alexander Shire councillors and staff worked with Rod on numerous projects and initiatives. As the chair of the North Central Goldfields Library Corporation, Rod joined councillors and staff as library board members and worked tirelessly to improve literacy levels and access for all ages. He was engaging, kind, and provided exceptional community services. Mount Alexander Shire Council acknowledges Rod's outstanding contributions. Our thoughts are with his family and community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. Item 6 is public question time. Could I have a motion that standing orders be suspended, please?
Mr Mayor, I'll move suspension of standing orders.
Thank you, Councillor Maltby. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor McCall. Thank you. All those in favour? Raise your hand. Okay, thank you. Okay, that brings us to public question time. I'll just read a couple of items. So I generally limit one question and allow 3 minutes to speak. So if you could extend your due courtesy and respect to the council and the process under which we operate. Take direction from myself as chair. And if you could also, as you reach the podium there, state your name clearly, state if you're representing the group or organisation, and is there any public question time anyone would like to say something? Yes, up the back. Yep, you put your hand up, that's fine. Thank you.
Hey there, my name's Darian Gowsey. I'm here representing myself. I am here to talk about the speed limit change in Chewton. So the Department of Transport responded to the council's request recently to review the decision to lower the Chewton Wesley Hill speed limit to 50 kilometres an hour. They're refusing to either revisit the change or even provide the community with their reasoning behind the change. The department minister, local member, and even a member of this council have repeated the line that this change only adds 90 seconds to the trip. For members of the community that make this trip daily, the change means an additional 18 hours that they spend in their car each year travelling that stretch of road. Even more for those who have children that attend school in Castlemaine. Understandably, a large part of the Castlemaine community are very upset by the manner in which this change was made and the complete lack of consultation and communication that has followed. Repeating comments like this just adds salt to the wound. Despite the attempts by council to shed more light on the process that led to this change, members of the community have been able to elucidate some of the machinations that have led to this change, at least in some part. So, for instance, we know that the initial approach to the department was made by the council on behalf of the group purporting to represent the community of Wesley Hill on or around the February 2023. Despite a council minute noting that this change most likely did not meet the department's own guidelines for setting speed limits on an arterial road, our state member of parliament made representations to the minister in both July and August. Following these, the Department of Transport began the process of submitting a brief to change a limit from Whitegum Track all the way to Castlemaine. We have email correspondence from a council officer letting the department know that the council had been briefed on the proposed change on or around the 26th of September, and that this change was supported by the council. The email also noted the council's concern with management of compliance with this change. We have the speed limit review briefing prepared by the Department of Transport outlining the rationale for this change, citing the council's support for this change. Beyond this, the document provides little justification for lowering the speed limit beyond the 18 accidents identified in the preceding 5 years, with no consideration of how this compares to similar arterial roads. In fact, our analysis shows that there were 24 accidents on the Campbell's Creek Road and 19 on the road through Barker's Creek in the same period. Similarly, there was no consideration of whether any of these accidents would have indeed been prevented by lowering the speed limit. The department noted that the traffic audit data collected by the council was not considered as part of this change as it was received too late. As a result of this, the community has been left significantly impacted by a change they had very little say in. My question to the council is, How does the council now propose to seek genuine consultation and ensure that the broader community concerned is being heard in the face of stonewalling from the department, minister and local member? And will the council support further efforts of the community to seek a review of this consequential decision?
Thank you for your question. Director Anir, I might get you to answer that.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for the questions today and the outline. The matter actually is being discussed at today's council meeting in item 11, which addresses the two key points that you've outlined as the two questions. So there will be a discussion this afternoon this evening at the meeting that speaks to the two questions about council's question about consultation and approaching the minister as we go forward.
Thank you, Director. Any other questions? If you could step up to the podium, please, and state your name.
Mayor, Council, thank you. John Lewis, I'm from Elphinstone, and broadly a committee which you probably heard a bit about, roughly under the aegis of the Elphinstone Progress Association and the Taradale Forum. I won't repeat, because you know all the circumstances very well, and Dorian's made a good summary of them. I just make this observation that after the petition from the people in Wesley Hill, after the disappointment of finding that the professional indications were that it wasn't a goer, the council generally moved heaven and earth to make sure it did happen, and in some ways that was admirable. But we got to the stage where, like it or not, it was imposed. You all know the details, but we note Marie Edwards, our local member's role throughout, and it was clear from materials we got under freedom of information that she was quite active in her activities. We also note that in the Castlemaine Mail last week that Miss Edwards' repudiation of anything involvement in anything other than the requested traffic interventions down Duke Street and probably further on. So my first question is to see whether council or council staff can help us with the core of this, which is the big mystery. Who chose White Gum Track and why?
Thanks for your question.
We have demonstrated, I think, the level of dissatisfaction with the current situation. There's a petition of 288 locals we brought here to council. We whizzed up another quick one, 136 to the Victorian Parliament, that Wendy Lovell presented for us, and she put up her response last week. And we've also had a change.org petition up, which is about one signature short of 1,900 as we speak tonight. Now, given, I suppose in the general notion, given those very large numbers of local people from all over the Shire, because I can tell you a lot, it's not just the eastern area of Elphinstone, Taradale, Metcalfe, etc. There's signatures from Castlemaine, Yappeen and further out. What we hope, and I understand there is a motion for council tonight.
You got a question, John? Can I have your second question, please? Because you've had your 3 minutes.
On it, which is taking this to the minister. I just hope the response word what the department returned to the council that it's earlier in question, word for word. So we are hoping, given the large numbers of people we contact, that council can undertake the fight just as hard as it did then to finding a solution to changing it back where it was and dealing with pedestrian problems in Duke Street. And finally, I think I think it's AFTA, I should say here. So
Is it John?
They've taken it to the Victorian Ombudsman, and we're seeking, and it's current, and we're seeking further advice on how we might take it to VCAT if we are unsuccessful in our dealings with the department.
So
Thank you.
thanks, John. I think there was a question in the first question there. Director Neer, do you want to say anything to that?
Thank you, John, for who chose Whitegum Track and why. That's really a question for the Department of Transport and Planning, and as council, we're not able to do that. I think the motion that's before council this afternoon, or this evening, I should say, it speaks to the core issue that is the community's concern, which is the location of the transition point from 50 kilometres to 80. If that is responded to, I think that addresses the underlying point about what is the transition point. So I would recommend that council and the community focus on looking at a transition point rather than trying to unpack the history about how something came about as a point in time. I do like to just add, Mayor, that with regard to the challenges of pedestrians moving up and down Duke Street, this has been an issue that we are well aware of as a council, and we have been talking with the Wesley Hill particularly around that, and we have been talking to the Department of Transport related to what we can do collectively around the area of Wesley Hill and including Duke Street. So it's a combination of what council can do on its management responsibilities for its roads, as well as what the Department of Transport. So the issue is not lost about cycling and pedestrian safety along that stretch of Duke Street. I can share that that's been in discussion and will continue to be in the coming period of time.
Thank you, Director Neer. Any other questions from the floor? That's a yes. Just come to the podium. Thank you. Yep, that's okay.
Evening, my name's Dion Peterson. I live out in Faraday. I am wanting to adjust some borders within my property, 3 titles there, and I want to adjust some internal borders. The council planning department has accepted this. They don't have a problem with it, except in the conditions of changing the borders, I have to demolish my shed. 28 by 11 metre shed. This is where I put items away, tractors, slashes, ride on lawnmowers, vehicles, keep them secure, keep them out of the weather. My question, I guess, basically goes to the planning department as to why this shed is to be demolished, yet it is over 15 metres away from the new boundaries. I can't see any reason. My land survey person who I've engaged to do this job cannot understand why this shed has to be removed. The shed's been there for around 40 years. I can assume it had a permit when it was built. The shed was modified in the early 2000s, and the council was involved at that stage when it was open to the public as a cellar door before my time. I think that pretty much sums it up. That's just the question I have, is why do I have to remove the shed? And
Director Neer, do you want to take it on notice, or would you?
No, I can
like to
reply.
answer that?
Thank you, Dion, and thanks for coming in. So there's some technical details behind that, which I don't think is appropriate to share today because it gets into an explanation conversation, which requires a bit of time and a bit of one-on-one conversation. So I'm not trying to avoid the question, but I can share with you that those details have been shared to your consultant who has put in the application on your behalf. And the council officers have provided an option for you to retain the shed if that's what you choose to do so. So I would recommend that you speak to your consultant who's representing you in the conversations to go forward and discuss that options that are put forward to you. There is an option for you to retain the shed on the basis of an application of the planning scheme. And there's no intent for us to require you to remove it. So that's hence why unnecessarily remove it, and hence why we've given you an option that you can take forward for you to retain the shed on that site. Yep, it was forwarded on the 5th of July, and it was following conversations that were had 7th of May. So your consultant has it in writing.
Yeah.
you directly if that's what you would like.
If we could, please.
Yep. So I will get our officers to contact your consultant and you to set up a direct meeting to discuss that. But there is an option for you to retain the shed, and I would seriously recommend that you consider that. It's relatively straightforward. Yep.
Yeah, my land survey says that he's heard nothing from the council, so I'll follow that up.
Yeah, if you guys could talk offline, that'd be great. Thanks, Director Neer. Thank you. Good on you. Thank you. Any other questions from the floor? Thank you.
My name's Jacqueline Brody-Hands. I'm here representing Businessman Alexander. I'm actually joined here tonight by some other colleagues from Businessman Alexander who will also be speaking on similar but separate matters. So excuse me while I get our paperwork ready. I want to start by commending Council on the work that's been undertaken to date to produce the draft economic development strategy. I'm a volunteer member of the Economic Wellbeing Working Group, which has contributed significantly to this document. So I know the many hours that have been put into it, and I want to extend my congratulations to the officers and the staff who've been involved in this document. Businessman Alexander is very pleased to partner with Council to assist it realise the goals and aspirations of this critical and long overdue planning document. As the only dedicated Shire-wide business association, Businessman Alexander is uniquely placed to help and address and progress a number of the EDS goals. Indeed, most of the goals and objectives contained in this document align with the focus of BMA's work. If we look at, I won't go into all of them, they're all very worthy, but if we look at the very first goal, it identifies prosperous local enterprises and organisations, and it contains the specific objectives to support local enterprise and organisations and to grow local community wealth building. Its actions to achieve these goals include linking organisations to the resources, information, networks and expertise that they need. Now, this aligns directly with BMA's statement of purpose, and it's reflected in our strategic plan. This is the very plan which Council funded us to develop into it. Our partnership with Council is very important, and it has the opportunity to be extremely effective in delivering the aspirations of this document, the Economic Development Strategy. The ongoing funding of Businessman Alexander, as was requested and supported by Council in 2023, is critical to the success of our partnership. Your financial contribution of only $5,000 per annum enables us to reach, connect and support hundreds of small businesses in our Shire. And we have seen real, measurable economic outcomes as a result of this work. On Friday just past, we received a belated notification that Council were no longer continuing to provide BMA with any ongoing financial support. This, despite having agreed to do so only 12 months ago and having developed a strong and mutually beneficial partnership between the two organisations over the past 24 months. We are at a loss to understand what has changed and why this decision and this very small support has been withdrawn. The Economic Development Strategy is further demonstration of the critical need to support Businessman Alexander and a partnership between the two organisations, and we respectfully ask that our funding be reinstated. Thank you.
Thanks, Jacqueline. CEO, Acting CEO Knight, would you like to answer that?
Thank you, Jacqueline, very much for coming in today and for asking those questions. And I know that you've had many conversations with our economic development team as well. With the strategy that you're referring to there, that's not yet adopted by Council. No. So, yeah, so I will just point out that that is a draft economic development strategy that is going through process with Council at the moment. Also very well aware that you made a submission for the council 24-25 budget process, which was considered by council via the adoption of the budget in June. So there has been correspondence sent to you as to why that's been unsuccessful. And I'm also aware of the further correspondence that you've sent in with similar questions. So I'm happy to take the further questions that you've raised today on notice to have an offline discussion. Also noting that you have had a discussion with Darren Fuzzard as CEO, I believe this month
No.
as well. Last month?
No, we haven't had any conversation with Darren.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm happy to take that on notice, Jacqueline, and arrange separate discussion regarding and seeking clarification as to why that budget proposal for 24-25 was not adopted in the 24-25 council budget, and also respond to any further queries or changes with that economic development strategy.
Terrific. Because the 2023 budget allocation was given to us as an ongoing basis. So we were unaware that we even needed to make application again for this year. We did so when we were advised, but again, we had been led to believe, and all correspondence and communication in 2023 stated that it was ongoing financial support. So thank you.
Thanks, Jacqueline. Any other questions from the floor? I think there was a couple of other BMA people. Yep. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jen Ward, and I've been BMA's Executive Officer for the past 8 years. Over that time, I have repeatedly walked the streets of Castlemaine, Malden, Harcourt, Guildford, Newstead, Taradale, to meet with hundreds of small business owners. I've distributed shopping bags. I'll show you, which in partnership with Rotary and Mount Alexander Shire Council, we've had these printed, and we still have some to distribute. And business owners are very grateful for these shop local, support local. I've handed out COVID safe information, food and beverage maps. So it's a map of the Shire. This is our second print run for autumn winter this year of all the hospitality venues in the Shire, and any events that come up. We run 4 business Mount Alexander networking events each year, which attract 80 to 100 people each time, and we've been running these for nearly 10 years now. Membership to BMA generally sits around the mark of 50 to 60 businesses per year, financial year. And these change each year as businesses close and new ones open. BMA has reached out, supported and assisted several thousand small and micro businesses in this town and the Shire. It is what we do. It is precisely what we created by this very council to do in 2014, to support and grow our economic well-being, which is, of course, the perfect alignment with your own economic development strategy. My question to council is, how is BMA, as the only Shire-wide dedicated business association, expected to achieve this mission without your support and financial assistance?
Thank you, Jen, for the question. Yeah, sure. Clarification, go for it.
Thank you, Jen. You certainly paint a good picture of your work. Could you tell me what do each businesses pay to be members of Business Mount Alexander? An annual
The fee for each business is $100 per financial year. So we've just put our invoices out to for renewals, and so far 26 businesses have already sort of signed up for the next financial year, which is great. And we have how many on the committee now? About 7 people on the committee who take on various roles. So we have one of our treasurer is the membership officer, and we're running a membership drive to so it brings in about $5,000 a year at the moment, but we want to increase that. And I feel like we've got traction to do that. We've got an event in a couple of weeks, and we're hoping to get about 50 people along to that or more. So thank you.
Thanks, Jen. Acting CEO, Knight.
Thank you very much, Jen, for your question and for coming in tonight also to raise that query, and obviously for the support that you provide to businesses. Similar to the response that I've already provided, Jacqueline, I will take some elements of that on notice, but would also like to point out I'm aware of conversations that have been held with the Economic Development team with regards to how you can partner with council, how you have partnered with council and what the opportunities are moving forward. So certainly happy to include you in future conversations with Jacqueline, and I can reach out after tonight. So if you're comfortable, I'll take that on notice and be in touch. Thanks, Jen.
Thanks, Jen. Thanks, Jacqueline. Thanks, CEO. Any other questions from the floor? Yes, come. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Angela McLean. I'm the business owner of Lifehouse Design. I'm also on the committee of BMA, and I just wanted to put forward another piece that adds to that whole sort of conversation that's going on, that we believe that there's many business owners and operators that struggle to see their businesses reflected and supported by the economic development strategy. For many people, these are just words on paper and they don't really have any relevance to the small business, which emphasises the immense importance of the next phase, which is to develop a range of actions to enact the aims that are detailed in this strategy. I understand it's a draft strategy, to help connect us, that kind of conduit between council and the small business owners in the Shire. This reinforces the need to work closely with BMA, and we can provide that direct link to many small and micro businesses across the Shire. We're a trusted and respected organisation with many hundreds of businesses engaging in our activities and attending our events. We see it as critical that council utilise the social capital of both organisations in delivering on the ambitions of the strategy. It's important to maintain a strong collaborative relationship between all parties. This, of course, is entirely dependent on the continuing viability of the business Mount Alexander, given the uncertainty around any ongoing financial support. We congratulate you again on the work done to date in developing the economic development strategy, and we look forward to exploring ways that we can assist in implementing and realising the aspirations and objectives that the strategy seeks to achieve. I guess my question is just that we ask council to, could you provide that BMA, that ongoing financial assistance to make this role possible? Because there's many, many hours that go into these committees and 99% of it is volunteer. But that small percent needs to go through so many hours to make this, to implement all of these things that we have produced, and that ongoing financial support would really make business Mount Alexander viable. Yep.
Thanks, Angela. I think the draft economic development strategy is still open for public comment, so I encourage you to say something personally, but also as the BMA, which I'm sure you will. But CEO Knight, would you like to say anything to that?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. And again, thank you, Angela, for coming in to talk to us about what your queries and concerns are. So noting, as you've already pointed out, it is a draft strategy and there is opportunity for comment. The budget has been adopted for 24-25, and there was certainly an opportunity, taking on board Jacqueline's feedback, there was certainly an opportunity to provide submissions for council or consideration, and that has been undertaken. So I do need to stress that point, that the budget has been adopted. So requests for financial support are not ordinarily taken outside that annual budget process. But again, happy to reach out to Business Mount Alexander and seek to undertake a conversation and a meeting to follow up the concerns that have been raised tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Angela. Any other questions from the floor? No, thank you. We don't have any written ones, so that brings us to a close of public time. Councillors, could I have a motion that standing orders be resumed, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Councillor Maltby. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Cordy, all those in favour? Motion carried. Thank you very much. And thank you, people in the audience, for those questions. Now, Councillor McClure, I think you have a conflict. Yes, you do. Yeah. Just please note that Councillor McClure is leaving the chambers. Next item on the agenda is item 7.1, the petition. Could I have someone to move that, please? Councillor Maltby?
Thank you. Council has received a petition on the 26th of June 2024 from residents with 23 signatures requesting that Merrifield Street, Castlemaine be reconstructed and sealed with asphalt spray seal. It was stated that the seal should extend from the Midland Highway through to the Painter Street intersection. That is not maintained regularly and is a daily thoroughfare for residents and other users who access McMeekin Street, Burnett Road and on KR. And I would move the council receive a report on this petition for its consideration within 2 scheduled council meetings in accordance with the Government Rules 2023.
Thank you, councillor. Do I have a second for that motion? Councillor Cordy. Any discussions? No. All those in favour of that motion? That motion's carried. Thank you. Guzzy, thank you. We're just getting Councillor McClure back. Thank you, Councillor McClure. Just for transparency, councillor, that motion was carried. That report for the petition. Thanks, councillors. Next item on the agenda is officers' report, item 9.1.1, which is the update to the statement of commitment to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Island peoples of the Shire. Councillor Henderson, would you like to introduce that, please?
Certainly, Mayor. Thank you. This purpose of this report is to present the updated Mount Alexander Shire Council commitment to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples of the Shire to Council for adoption. The update has provided an opportunity to make minor amendments to the document to ensure its continued relevance whilst allowing the original intent of its acknowledgement to remain unchanged. The proposed changes have been developed in partnership with members of Council's Indigenous Roundtable. And I'd like to move, if I may, that Council adopts the 2024 Mount Alexander Shire Council commitment to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples of the Shire.
Thank you, councillor. Do I have a seconder to this? Councillor Cordy? Okay. Councillor Henderson, would you like to speak to your motion?
Certainly. This is was at the time, 2014, I think, a landmark document, and one that was put us ahead of quite a few other councils. We were very pleased. There was a lot of proactive staff and councillors. I seem to remember that the mayor at the day instigated it, but then it was carried on by further mayors and councillors. Great support. We have a pretty small but pretty active group of Aboriginal people here who have worked successfully with the rest of the local community and the staff to bring together an Indigenous roundtable, which is a fantastic thing. And I'm not quite sure which came first. I think the Indigenous roundtable might have come first. Yes. Anyway, never mind. I should read the history better. But what we have now is a document that's 10 years old. A commitment to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples of the Shire. And it's just getting a minor makeover and brush up. The commitments need updating because a lot has happened in 10 years. The document is in 2 parts. First of all, it's acknowledgement of the peoples and then commitments from my council to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in the Shire. And so the acknowledgement stands, but the commitments have got minor amendments. And because now the document is really not superseded, but sits as part of a much greater document, I suppose, so certainly with more meat on it, which is our reconciliation plan, Council's reconciliation plan, which was developed in 2020, right, all that time ago. It seems just 2 years ago. And having this document is quite significant because it was recognised that whereas there are templates where councils across the country, I think, are sort of expected to work towards one or the other or different levels according to where you stand. It was recognised that in this shire we have our own special situation due to the success of the Indigenous Roundtable. Our reconciliation plan is a one-off and special for Mount Alexander Shire. However, so this document, the commitment, the original document, has just had a bit of a makeover and acknowledges that in 2020 we adopted the Mount Alexander Shire Council Reconciliation Plan to guide its progress towards reconciliation. At the core of the plan and all subsequent reconciliation plans are these commitments to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples of the Shire. So it stands. And that is the document. So I recommend it to my fellow councillors.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Cordy, would you like to speak to the motion or reserve your right?
Thanks, Mayor. I'll speak just briefly. Look, this is just really an update of our commitment to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples of the Shire. As Christine mentioned, our round table is working very well, and certainly as we work through various mayors, it's very informative to sit down and talk about these common issues that affect us, and we're all learning from that. I'll just note that our Australia Day, Sorry Day is an award-winning event, and it's partnering with Council and our Indigenous community. And the other one to note is that the success of our celebration of Indigenous heritage in the market buildings is extremely successful. And yeah, I think we're working very closely with our local people, and we're heading in the right direction. So yeah, I'd endorse this update of this document. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Cordy. Other councillors? Councillor
Just
Henderson, yes.
a point, not a point of order, but the document itself, I failed to point out, in fact, it needs a minor amendment. This is the commitment document in the third last paragraph. It refers to 2014 Council committed to hosting 2 roundtables per year with the members of the local Indigenous community. Now, part of the update, if you like, has decided that it replace the word Indigenous in this document with the now more acceptable, I think, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander, which is a bit longer, but I'm assured that by fiddling around with the document, we can still put it all on one page. So I think it's been noted by the officers that the final form should replace that one word Indigenous with Aboriginal.
Thank you for picking that up. Do you want to write a reply, or you're okay? Okay. Okay. With that amendment in place, that slight change in place, all those in favour of the document? Okay, that motion's carried. Thank you. Thank you all. The next item on the agenda is item 9.2.1, which is a planning scheme amendment. Councillor McClure, would you like to introduce this, please?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm pleased to introduce this. The purpose of this report is to enable Council to consider 2 submissions received during the public exhibition period of Amendment C99 Mount Alexander, and to decide whether to adopt the amendment and submit it to the Minister of Planning for approval. Amendment C99 MALX seeks to correct inconsistencies in the Mount Alexander planning scheme associated with the heritage overlay and operational provisions. These inconsistencies were identified following the implementation of a previous amendment C97 MALX. The correction of these anomalies and minor errors will contribute to more effective operation and administration of the planning scheme. And I'm pleased to move the recommendation as printed. Thank you, Councillor.
Sorry, thank you, Councillor. Do I have a seconder?
Seconded.
Councillor Maltby, thank you. Councillor McClure, would you like to speak to the motion, please?
Thanks, Mayor. As I've said, this is just seeks to correct a few inconsistencies in the planning scheme. I don't know that I need to go into it any much further than that. It's an important document and I'll leave it at that. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, councillor. Councillor Maltby, would you like to speak to your motion? Oh, sorry, speak to the motion or reserve your right?
I'll reserve my right.
Okay, thank you. Other councillors? Any discussion?
I think just to say that these administrative changes or amendments to our planning scheme go on. They need to happen from time to time. It's quite laborious for our staff to do it. Very grateful that we didn't have any need for a planning panel, which would have been quite ludicrous, really, because they're very minor amendments. And the only person who objected actually made a mistake, which I'm glad they owned up, that they'd actually pressed the wrong button on the shape page or something. So we're doing all right, and it'll go through and we'll get the minister to accept it, and our planning scheme will just be that little bit more accurate once more. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Henderson. Other councillors? Councillor Maltby, would you like to, you reserved your right. Do you want to say anything?
No, that's fine.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we have a motion in place. All those in favour of that motion, please raise your hand. Okay, thank you. That motion's carried. Next item on the agenda is item 9.2.2, which is the industrial land strategy discussion paper. Councillor Cordy, would you like to introduce this, please?
Thanks for that, Mayor. The purpose of this report is to provide an update on the Mount Alexander Shire Industrial Land Strategy. A discussion paper has been prepared and is being presented to Council prior to public consultation. The purpose of the Industrial Land Strategy is to set Council's vision for industrial use and development over the next 20 years. The strategy will seek to ensure there is appropriate and sufficient industrial land to serve the development needs of the Shire into the future. A 4-week consultation period is proposed to occur on the discussion paper in late July and August 2024. Feedback received on the discussion paper will be considered in the preparation of the draft strategy, and I would move the recommendation as printed. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Cordy. Do I have a second to that motion? Councillor McClure, thank you. Councillor Cordy, would you like to speak to that motion, please?
Yes, look, we've talked about industrial land supply for several years at Council, and looking at this report, it's a high quality report, and I think it's great. It's real and show what land is available. I'm very happy that this is going out for public comment. From my reading of the document, while technically we meet the projected industrial land use requirements going forward, I think when I look at the detail of the document, what it suggests is the take up of existing industrial land is a very high percentage, and I just think from my own perspective that more industrial land would attract more business to our community. Anyway, that's not the purpose of it. The purpose is to get this document out for community input, but certainly commend this document to the community, and we'd have a look at the feedback we get. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor McClure, would you like to speak to the motion or reserve your right?
I'll speak.
Thank you.
Mayor. Thank you. Yeah. Can I just commend the team, Michael Anea and his director Anea, sorry, my apologies, and Nathan, the planner Nathan Lord, and the consultants that produced this report. I think it's an excellent report. Got a lot of information in it, and I would urge members of the community to get a copy of this and have a look through it, because it's got not only has some great information about what's happening in our Shire with the level of current industry that we have, but opportunities to improve on future industries and encourage the building of future industries within the Shire. But with that, they need somewhere to go, and I think around this table we've agreed for some time that there are not a lot of opportunities within the Shire that are marked in the planning scheme as available for larger industries. There's a lot of smaller cottage type industries happening around the Shire, but larger groups, I know we've had some discussions about some planning matters where things have come up before us and they look like seriously being knocked back by council. And you would have to say, well, if we don't let this happen, where do they go in the Shire? Because the industrial land's just not available. So it's an important document in my view. It's an important discussion that we have to have throughout the Shire. So I say again, I really do implore people within the Shire to have a look at this document and make some comment on what we can do to improve the quantity or availability of industrial land in the Shire. As I said, it's a great document. It's a good read. So thank you.
Thank you, councillor McClure. Other councillors, any discussion? No, thank you. Councillor Cordy, you have the right to reply.
Mayor, I'll just conclude by saying you certainly had a big role to play in getting this work done. So you must be very pleased to see it as well. So thank you for your efforts.
Thank you, councillor. Okay, so I have a motion in front of us. All those in favour of that motion, please raise your hand. The motion's carried. Thank you, councillors. And I'll just point out that there'll be some deliberative engagement with this. So we're going out to organisations for their say, and also the discussion papers should be released to the public for a 4-week period. So if people can put their comments on this, that'll be fantastic. So thank you, councillors. The next item on the agenda is item 9.3.1, which is planning application PA 075/2022. Councillor Gardner, could you introduce this, please?
Certainly can. The purpose of this report is to enable council to make a determination on application for amendment to planning permit PA 075202/1, which allows the use and development of land for a road freight distribution terminal at 4 Lansgo Street, Castlemaine. The proposed amendment relates to removing condition 5, hours of operation, and condition 12, engineering access, LA and car parking requirements. The applications have been referred to council for a decision, as the council officer recommendation is to refuse the application, and 17 objections have been received. The subject site is located within the industrial zone Schedule 3 and is not affected by any overlays under the Mount Alexander planning scheme. The application was advertised and received 17 objections. The grounds related to hours of operation, amenity impacts, pollution, noise and traffic. The application has been assessed against and is considered to be contrary to the relevant selections of the planning policy framework. In addition, the proposal is not considered to meet objectives and decision guidelines of the Industrial 3 zone. In forming this position, consideration was given to the grounds of objections and the views of the relevant referral authorities. It is recommended the application is not supported and a notice of refusal to grant an amendment to an application is issued in accordance with the following recommendations, and I would like to move the motion as printed.
Thank you, Councillor Gardner. Do I have a seconder for Councillor Gardner's motion? Councillor Henderson. Okay, thank you. Is this motion opposed? Thank you, Councillor Mobley. Councillor Cordy. Councillor Gardner, would you like to speak to your motion, please?
Yeah, sure. I think, as the executive summary said, I mean, essentially this the applicant is seeking to amend a current planning application. The business currently operates out of the site. Their main changes they're seeking to see is almost for a 24/7, 7-day-a-week operation. Now, the reason why I personally support the notice of refusal is that this property is zoned in Industrial Zone 3, Now, under an industrial zone 3, that is a sort of border, or it's sort of a in between residence and industrial, and it's supposed to act as sort of a buffer. Generally in there, it's sort of a light industry, and it would sort of operate within normal parameters. Interesting, we just had a discussion about industrial land use, and this first permit is this one. For me, whilst I am sort of really, I feel for the applicant, however, it's not the right location. We did hear from residents who have lived in the street a long time, except that they have worked with current businesses in there, and I think even one of the people said they love it there. They have relationships with these businesses, and everyone seems to work together. Unfortunately, a trucking company operating in a zone 3 truck movements, and it's been indicated by the applicant, there will be truck movements in the middle of the night, and we're talking very large trucks, and obviously they will cause disturbance. There is a proposal to build a great big wall, which would reduce some of the impact of the noise, but at the end of the day, large trucks will be driving past houses, possibly in the middle of the night. So the reason why I am supporting the officer's recommendation in this is that unfortunately it's not an appropriate place to have a 24/7 operation, and it would be more, it should be more in sort of zone 1 in the industry and not here. So that's why I am supporting the officers on this one.
Thank you, councillor. Councillor Henderson, would you like to speak to the motion or reserve your right to speak?
I reserve my right to speak. Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, councillor. Other councillors? Councillor Maltby?
I'll just correct Councillor Gardner firstly. It's not currently operating, and nothing is built on the land. I'm foreshadowing that should this motion be defeated, that I have an alternative motion which helps some of the objections and actually deals with them. The applicant has a business on the corner of Kennedy and Campbell Street and has been there for at least 50 years plus. In my lifetime as a councillor, and that's twice, there's never been any objections to his business operation there, and yet it's in the smack centre of a residential development area. To suggest that there'll be massive use of trucks, that area down there now in Langslow Street has 1, 2, 3 businesses that operate trucks at any time without planning permit conditions because they're in zone 1. This piece of land is right abutting it. And it's possibly the only piece that is zone 3. The wall that they talk about building will resolve a lot of issues of noise. If, as I say, it doesn't get up, some of the conditions in the motion that I'm prepared to move will address the issue of where the trucks drive and can come. They won't be going down Monaghan Street past the objectors' houses to start with. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Maltby. Other councillors? Councillor Cordy?
Thanks, Mayor. Look, from my perspective, the use is consistent with industrial zone 3. It's not heavy manufacturing or industry. We're talking about a family-owned business, and yes, that might change in the future. But this business is, is taking goods from Castlemaine to Melbourne and bringing goods back from Melbourne to Castlemaine. It's a sound local business, and providing a very important resource to our community. If you look at Castlemaine, there's probably 200 large trucks going in and out of town every day without any control, and I think it's totally inappropriate to be setting timelines. Like, people just need to be able to get into their vehicle and go to meet the needs of their clients. So yeah, I don't support this refusal, and I'd certainly be keen to look at Councillor Maltby's alternative. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Corder. Any other councillors? Councillor McClure?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I at this point in time don't support the motion as it stands. I agree with the comments that Councillor Maltby made. This business has been operating in the centre of Castlemaine for a long period of time, right in smack bang in the middle of a residential area without any complaints that I know of, and I've lived here for a long time too. So I don't think it's the type of industry that will cause a lot of distress to people. There is, in the drawings that have been provided, there is provision for buffer back from the residential property, so they're not building right up. They're not proposing to build right up against the residential properties. There's an offer of provision of an acoustic barrier fence, which I understand Bill's going to promote that be included in the proposal, which again will reduce any a limited amount of noise that will come from this property. So on value, I think I'd support not support this current motion, but prefer to look at an alternative. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor McClure. Councillor Henderson, that brings me to your right to speak now. Reserve your right.
Thank you, Mayor. I must remind my fellow councillors that even though this is a well-respected and long-established business, this permit is not going to the business, it's going to the site. It is attached to the site. So, and it stays. It cannot be revoked because another business happens to move in 2 years, 20 years time. It sits there forever until the world changes. So we have to, just as we do with residential planning permits, it's no good considering the personality or the good intentions of the applicant. You have to consider what's happening on that site and is it appropriate. The purpose of Industrial 3 land is to provide a buffer between the Industrial 1 zone or Industrial 2 zone and local communities, which allows for industries and associated uses compatible with a nearby community. I'm sure that the people who live about to the current site of the business that wants to transfer didn't have the luxury of having a buffer or even of having a zoning back in the day. And that's another thing. So the thing is, this business and this site currently has a permit. It's been granted a permit to operate between 6:30 a.m. to 8 p.m. on weekdays, except public holidays, and 8:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Saturdays. And the report tells us that an analysis of businesses along Langslow Street operating in the Industrial 1 zone reveals that the prominent hours of operation for businesses in the area are from approximately 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. This excluding the treatment plant, thank goodness, with many of these businesses being closed on the weekends. So we do not have a happy place where there is lots of noise going on all the time. It happens just during the day. And I have to stress that this is Industrial 3 zone. I'm very sorry for the applicant that it is Industrial 3 zone, but that's life, it is. And it says in the report here, very clear, the purpose of the Industrial 3 zone is distinctly clear in the wanted outcomes of the zone, which is further supported by VCAT decision Thriveport Pty Limited versus Maribyrnong CC brackets 2015 that emphasises the importance of Industrial 3 zone as providing the buffer between industry and sensitive land uses, i.e. people living there and trying to sleep at night. The guidelines for the use of the land in Industrial 3 zone are explicit that the amenity of the neighbourhood is not to be affected in any manner, and it is considered that the amended proposal cannot meet the requirements of the zone. So that's in the report. And if this is, this business is actually ends up, or this site ends up with a permit granted by my fellow councillors, I would recommend that the objectors consider very seriously taking this matter to VCAT, because the evidence is there. They stand a pretty good chance of winning. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. Councillor Gardner, you have a right of reply.
Thanks. First of all, you're right, Bill. I did make a mistake in, don't look at me like I'm surprised. I admit when I make mistakes. They haven't been operating from that site and they have been from another site. I think Councillor Hendon has pointed it out, and she has read all the conditions. It is industrial zone 3 zone. And in it states amenity of the neighbourhood. A use must not adversely affect the amenity of the neighbourhood, including through the transport of materials, goods, or commodities to or from the land, which this will do. It seems to me odd that we've just had we're putting out to consideration a land use industrial zone, and I agree we need one. But it would concern me in the future if we have one, but then a business doesn't like it and we need to change it, like we're considering here. Buffers are put in place to ensure that the noise doesn't affect neighbours, and that's really important, particularly in a place like Castlemaine. So I understand the business, people might want to support the business, but this is about a long-term use of this piece of land, which currently is zone 3 industrial, light industrial area. So I would urge my councillors really to think about it before we actually vote on it. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. We have a motion in place by councillor Gardner and seconded by councillor Henderson for a notice of refusal to grant this permit. All those in favour of that motion, please raise your hand. All those against? Which means that this didn't get up.
Can I call for a division, please, Matt?
Yes, certainly. So all those in favour of the motion, please raise your hand. That's councillor Gardner and councillor Henderson. And all those against the motion is councillor Maltby, councillor Cordy, councillor McClure and councillor Driscoll. Is there another motion? Yes, councillor Maltby.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
It's going to be put up on the...
On the screen, there'll be a copy of the motion in layman, which it is. And that basically says that council resolved to issue an amended planning permit associated with PA 07520222/2 for the use and development of land for road freight distribution terminal at 4 Langslow Street, Castlemaine, subject to the following conditions, which include amendment to PA 75/2020/1 conditions, and they are printed on that screen there, and councillors have seen them. If I get a second, I'll explain.
Okay, councillor Maltby, do I have a second to that motion? Councillor Cordy? Okay. Is there any opposition to that motion? Councillor Gardner? Okay. Councillor Maltby, would you like to speak to that motion, please?
Thank you. As I said earlier, it's a local business that's been operating without complaints for years and years. They're suggesting or wanting to move out of a residential area to a zone 3 industrial area, granted, but that area is full of industrial things. And Councillor Henderson mentions that the trucks down that way don't move before 8 or after 4. One of them is a tow truck business, and he's moving all the time. One is a earth moving business, and they don't sit in their yard till 8 o'clock in the morning and back at 4 o'clock. The other thing in that motion is that there's conditions about how the trucks get to this depot, they're not, well, they won't be allowed under the conditions to drive down Monaghan Street past the objectors' houses. They go from Malden Road to Martin Street and around Langslow Street to the gates and back the other way again. And there's this noise abutment wall is in the conditions. There's a major planting of a vegetation buffer and many other conditions that will make it usable, unoffensive, and successful. Last year, I think, we granted a permit for a lock-up storage facility at the top end of Monaghan Street. And I suggest when they finally build that, there'll be a ton more traffic going down and up Monaghan Street to that facility than this operation would have. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Moppy. Councillor Cordy, would you like to speak to your motion or reserve your right to speak?
Reserve my right. Thank you.
Thank you,
Mayor.
councillor Cordy. Other councillors? Councillor Gardner?
Excuse me. I mean, we've pretty much had this discussion, so the only thing I'd like to point out, one, is that the Zone 3 is supposed to be a buffer. So the only reason why they're going to put up sand walls and trees is to act as that buffer, but you actually shouldn't need it if you have industry that's acting in accordance with Zone 3. So effectively what you're doing is turning into a Zone 1 piece. The comment about, I suppose, the sheds and storage, it's highly unlikely that you're going to have big trucks driving up there 24/7. So I'd see no reason to change. It is Industrial 3 zone. It's not Industrial 1, and I feel sorry for the business. I get it, they're operating in current Castlemaine. But if we're going to have industry, there needs to be properly zoned and properly planned, and just changing a notion just because we feel like it isn't the right way to do it. So this is why I'm against it.
Thank you, councillor Gardner. Other councillors? Councillor McClure?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm inclined to support the motion for a couple of reasons. I think it takes you back to thinking about their current operations. I mean, I certainly was a bit concerned about the aspect of taking out the ceiling of the yard, but on consideration and reflection, their current operations, they don't operate in a yard that's got sealed surfaces in it. So I'm prepared to let that one drop. And it was pointed out, there's probably other areas in the Shire, other businesses that don't have sealed yards area. But I mean, it was a concern of mine, but it's not the be all of end all. I mean, we've had this discussion about the amount of available industrial land in this Shire, and there is not a hell of a lot of it. And we want businesses to grow and to flourish in this Shire. And by reducing what they can do on their sites to almost reducing their hours of operation, I don't think it is an effective way of trying to encourage our industries to thrive and grow. I think I think there's been enough work done on the plans to consider a buffer zone with fencing and with tree planting and so forth, that it will provide a sufficient buffer between the houses on Monaghan Street. And I take Councillor Henderson's view that we shouldn't be taking on board who the operators are, but to a certain extent, I don't agree with that, Councillor Henderson, because these people have operated in this town for, as Bill said, for 50 years or more. They're solid operators. I think they're probably a family that will continue to grow and sort of thrive in this community, and we need to be supporting the work that they're trying to do by growing their business, not trying to shut them down in a sense. So I think we do at times have to take some consideration into who are operating these businesses and provide as much support as we can. Whether it agrees with the planning scheme or not, I think there needs to be some provision for that. So I'm happy to support it at this point. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, councillor McClure. Any other councillors? Councillor Henderson?
I should remind my esteemed fellow councillor that when considering planning permit applications, you're operating under the Planning and Environment Act, and therefore compliance with the planning scheme is paramount, rather than considering personal. But I fully agree with you sentimentally, but I just thought I'd remind you of that. I just want to point out the applicant's own acoustic report from their Waveform Acoustics from Albert Street, Blackburn, has recommended that, yes, there certainly will be noise from vehicles, and it does say in the night period, so we expect the noise associated with truck air brakes being vented to be at a sound level of 120 dB, which is serious. We would rate the likelihood of harm on the neighbourhood as likely. This is based on the potential disturbance of sleep. So therefore, for their controls, they recommend that to ensure, let's see, plant and equipment noise controls, that it doesn't negatively affect the nearby residents, should be the verification of equipment, blah, blah, used by an acoustic consultant, physicians to ensure there's minimal line of sight and as much distance between the equipment and the residents. Yeah. Noise from vehicles, acoustic fencing and management controls to ensure vehicles are not generating excessive noise should be implemented. Night period use of the site in order to mitigate, this is the acoustic report. This is a consultant, not the applicant. In order to mitigate noise from trucks in the night period, such as venting of air brake systems, including with this acoustic fence in place, trucks should be parked at the front of the site from 2200 hours to 7 hours in the morning. Just work on that. And I think the officer's comment was, well, actually, the road on Langslow Street is not designed to carry heavy trucks parked at the roadside. And yet that's what their own consultant is recommending. Just think on that for a little bit. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. Councillor Cordy, you have the right to speak.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, I think the couple of trucks that are going to come and go from this facility are not going to cause problems for local residents, and you know, there's a lot of vehicle movements throughout the community, but I know this particular enterprise, you're talking a few vehicle movements a day, and the rest of the time it is quiet. So bottom line is, I don't see noise being a problem, and yeah, I think happy to support Councillor Maltby's alternative motion. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, councillor Cordy. Councillor Maltby, you have a right of reply.
Thank you. And Councillor McClure and Cordy are right. It's not a massive operation, and there may be times that at 10 o'clock at night the truck gets back from Melbourne late, but it won't be every day. The fact is they're shifting out of a residential zone into an industrial zone. The conditions in my motion control lots of stuff, as in noise, as in access, etc. We should be helping businesses continue to grow. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Maltby. So we have an alternate motion, which is to council resolve to issue an amended planning permit, which was moved by councillor Maltby and seconded by councillor Cordy. All those in favour of that motion, please raise your hand. All those against? That motion is carried. Certainly. Okay. Thank you, councillor. All those in favour of the motion, please raise your hand. That is councillor Maltby, councillor Cordy, councillor McClure and councillor Driscoll. All those against the motion, please raise your hand. It's councillor Gardner and councillor Henderson. Thank you. Thank you, councillors, for that respectful debate. Next item on the agenda is item 3.2. No, sorry, 9.3.2, which is planning application PA 069/2022, 15 Bowden Street. Councillor Henderson, could you like to introduce this, please?
Thank you, Matt. The purpose of this report is to enable council to make a determination on an application for a 2-lot subdivision at 15 Bowden Street, Castlemaine. The application has been referred to council for a decision, as the council officer recommendation is to refuse the application. The subject site is within a general residential zone and affected by a heritage overlay schedule 668, HO 668 Camp Reserve and environs. The application was advertised and one objection was received to the original proposal and no objections were received to the amendment. The application has been assessed against and is considered to be contrary to the relevant sections of the planning policy framework and the objectives and guidelines of the heritage overlay. In forming this position, consideration was given to the views of the relevant referral authorities. It is recommended that a notice of decision to refuse a planning permit be issued in accordance with the following recommendation, which I will not read, Mayor, but I will move if I get a seconder.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. Is there a seconder of that? Councillor Cordy. Councillor Henderson, would you please speak to your motion?
Well, yes, I move that the recommendation is printed, and I will speak to it, which is, it's all about the heritage. HO 668 is one of our more higher profile heritage overlays, it being the holy ground of the Camp Reserve and all that surrounds it. It's got a checkered history, or maybe that's the wrong word. There's a bit of a history on this block. It was, I think, the Langslow family land originally, and then got chopped up, probably not very sympathetically, from north to south instead of east to west. Is that right? Anyway, it's been cut the wrong way. So this land, unlike all the other in this section of Bowden Street, does not extend through to Farnsworth Street. And so we've got a block at the front, fronting onto Bowden, and it has been, and the original bit that was chopped off has been subdivided into 2, and this one is seeking to subdivide once again. So 15 Bowden Street to become 15A and 15B. All very well, except that the land is, well, as it says, the subject site forms part of an extensive curated garden. The garden still exists in many forms, including through dry stone walls and mature exotic vegetation throughout the subject site. Unfortunately, the plans submitted with the application do not accurately illustrate the extent of vegetation and dry stone walls that span the site. And there's concern that the layout of the proposed subdivision and future development of the lots will impact on existing dry stone walls and significant vegetation on the site. There's certainly a lot of vegetation on the site, but including in that is significant vegetation. Dry stone walls, you think, well, what the heck, you know, a few rocks piled on top of each other. But in fact, it is a particular provision or part of the heritage provisions to protect dry stone walls and post boxes. For some reason, they go along with them. Probably because in the old days, certainly in Britain, they used to build post boxes into dry stone walls. So maybe that's some of the old ones in Australia too. Anyway, so the report goes on to say that the subdivision and development of this site, where appropriate, must be carefully managed to preserve the valued heritage, neighbourhood and landscape character. In this instance, concerns have been raised with the applicant in relation to the need for substantial vegetation removal, cut and fill to provide vehicle access, and construction of dwellings on the site. It's been suggested the application be amended to incorporate the construction of necessary works to accommodate vehicle access and dwellings on the properties to allow a thorough assessment of the implications of the project. Certainly is, as we see the plans now, my fellow councillors all have a large copy of the plans as well as one in the report, and it's hard to see the details of where will these cars turn around and park and come out in a forward direction, and why is the subdivision going through one of the significant trees, and et cetera, et cetera. So the officers haven't said a blanket no. Obviously, we're interested in subdivision in this part of town. It's close to town. It makes sense to have small sites. However, it's got to be done sensitively in the context of this very important heritage overlay, as well as making somewhere that's a decent place to live. So the applicant has chosen not to engage in further negotiations with council and has requested the application be determined against the information provided. It's therefore considered the application should be refused due to inadequate information to determine the application. And I think I have to support the officer's recommendation in this case and say we need more information. It may well be that we could get 2 really nice little houses there and we could have access for cars and keep all the stone walls that are still there and make them a really beautiful addition to Bowden Street. But we must consider this sensitively in the context of the original curated garden, or I say original by the settlers there, and the heritage overlay. So I urge my fellow councillors to support the officer's recommendation and refuse this application at this stage. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson, for that excellent introduction. Councillor Cordy, would you like the right to speak now or reserve your right?
I'll speak
Okay,
now,
thank you.
Mayor. Look, for me, this site is a problem. It probably should never have been subdivided off the original residence. It's a very steep site. It's difficult to do anything with, and then it's got a heritage overlay and it's part of a heritage garden and heritage stone walls, as Councillor Henderson has covered. So I just think it's a very unsatisfactory outcome to put dwellings on this lot. So I think the officers of their recommendation of a refusal is totally appropriate. I can't see how you could provide safe access and egress if there were dwellings constructed on the lot, and it's just a disaster, and council certainly shouldn't be going down the route of providing planning approvals where there isn't safe and proper access, because it's just a nightmare, and we've seen it in other situations. So I'm strongly supportive of the officer's recommendation. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Other councillors? Okay, no, thank you. So, Councillor Henderson, you have a right of reply. Okay, so we have a motion in front of us to refuse the grant the planning permit. All those in favour of that motion, please raise your hands. All those against? No one. So it's carried. Yes, all those in favour of the motion is Councillor Gardner, Councillor Maltby, Councillor Cordy, Councillor McClure, Councillor Henderson and Councillor Driscoll. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Which brings us to item 9.3.3, which is change of schedule meeting dates and the election period policy. Councillor Maltby.
Thank you. On June 19th, 2024, the Local Government Amendment, Governance and Integrity Bill 2024 was passed by Parliament. The bill makes a series of amendments to the Local Government Act 2020 to support better council integrity, accountability and governance across the local government sector ahead of the 2024 council general elections. The Local Government Electoral Regulations 2020 have been impacted by the passing of the bill. The provisions that relate to upcoming elections came into operation on the day after the bill received royal assent. The most significant impacts are the changes to the close of the electoral roll and other key dates for the October 2024 council elections. And I would move the council approves rescheduling the September meeting of council from the 17th of September 2024 to the 10th of September 2024. Gives notice to the community via the council website and the council column that the meeting of council has been rescheduled to the 10th of September 2024. 3, notes the administrative changes to the election period policy to ensure that the revised dates align with the changes from the Local Government Amendment Governance and Integrity Bill 2024 and Local Government Electoral Regulations 2020.
Thank you, councillor Maltby. Do I have a second to that motion? Councillor Gardner, thank you. Councillor Maltby, would you like to speak to your motion?
So the changes to the Act would have meant that basically our scheduled meeting for the 17th of September couldn't have been held. Well, you couldn't have made any decisions.
Okay, that's right. Yep.
So bringing it forward a week will assist the community with planning applications if there's any or other things, so that council just doesn't shut down while there's an election on, basically.
Thank you, councillor. Councillor Gardner, would you like to speak to your motion or reserve your right?
No, I think Bill summed it up. It's mainly administrative change in response to legislation to allow us to hold a September council meeting.
Okay, thank you, councillor. Other councillors? Okay, all those in favour of that motion, please. Sorry, you have a right to reply.
But as Stephen says, it's an administrative thing, and as I said, it makes sure that there is a September council meeting that we can do some work.
Okay, thank you.
Just say something, please.
Certainly.
We're still allowed to make planning decisions during the.
Well, yeah, but there's other things that we wouldn't
Yeah,
be
we
allowed
can't
to
spend
make.
more than 1% or 4% of the budget.
Okay.
We're limited, certainly
Thank you.
limited. And there's a lot of stuff that needs to get through because we've just passed our budget and we're in a time when the officers are trying to get major projects underway and they need councillor approval. And that's why it's really important that the September, it's going to be big. Lots of decisions there for council and it'll be good.
Thank you. Any other councillors? Okay, all those in favour of the motion, please raise your hand. Motion carried. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is item 9.3.4, which is the annual plan actions 2024-2025. Councillor Henderson, could I get you to introduce this, please?
Thank you. Thank you very much. This, well, of course, council has to have a council plan and we have one, of course. And it starts off roughly 6 months after this council began, and it will end roughly 6 months after this current term of council ends. And so each year, the council plan is chopped up into annual plans and sort of in accordance with budget decisions, I suppose. So whatever's been funded in the budget then needs to be reflected in the annual plan, what's going to be done. Not everything, but key stuff, obviously, from the budget. And this is the last one. So this annual plan will actually take us to the end of this current term of council and will be the guiding document for the next council until it formulates its own council plan and so the whole system rolls on again, and so it is, and so it should be. So I recommend this to my fellow councillors. It's got some nice things in it. We know we talked about the budget an awful lot until we came to pass it, and so a few things should come to mind. Let's go through it and see. Have we got on the second page of the annual plan? We've got connecting walking and cycling trails, completion of the Campbell's Creek Walking and Cycling Trail, and that's expected to be completed by June 2025. I'm very happy we will all be, and I can see that Director Aeneas got a big smile on his face, which means, oh, he's still crossing his fingers, oh dear. However, it will happen. It's been a long time in the coming, this one, the so-called missing link, but since he's a resident of Campbell's Creek himself, I'm sure he's got a special interest in getting this one over the line. We've got the money, we just need all the permissions. Oh, and the contractor willing to do it. Then we've got our affordable housing, Progress Preferred affordable housing options, which has got $250,000 sitting against it. And that's to be completed by the end of this year. So that's coming up pretty soon. And what else have we got? Highlights. FOGO and glass recycling. Explore options for the processing and transport of food organics and gardening organics and glass, and seek council endorsement of recommended services. That has to be, doesn't have any money against it, but it's certainly lots of big decisions there and work by our officers, and that has to be completed by the end of the financial year. And industrial land review, industrial land strategy drafted. So $100,000. We've got the discussion paper, and the aim is by this time next year, or June 2025, we'll actually have an industrial land strategy drafted. So that's pretty exciting. They're just a few highlights from this year's annual plan. Oh, and of course, too, close to my heart, annual playground renewal requires complete renewal of the Friarstown playground, a very sad old place, which is going to be much better after nearly $200,000 will have been spent on it. And by this time next year, and the complete final stages of refurbishment of the Tewton Church. Wow, wow, wow. Isn't that fantastic? And that's also going to be completed in the next financial year. So this current financial year. So lots of exciting things to look forward to, councillors, in the annual plan. And I commend it to my fellow councillors.
So do I have a motion?
Oh, hang on. We have to endorse the proposed actions, some of which are read out, and note that we will get a quarterly update on progress at future meetings of council.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. Do I have a second of that motion? Councillor Cordy, thank you. Councillor Henderson, would you like to speak to your motion?
Oh, sorry. Look, I was doing all right until
You're
now.
doing great.
I got
You're
a bit
doing
carried
great.
away. Look, I've spoken to it.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Cordy, would you like to speak to this motion or reserve your right?
No, look, I'd just like to pick up on the things that Councillor Henderson missed in her report. But look, it's a high quality plan. It's really only the headline items of things that are in the budget. Like, it's not everything we do, but it's a high quality plan. There's some fantastic projects in there. One of the things that's dear to my heart is we've got the planning scheme review in there. Our planning scheme needs a huge amount of work, and we need to free up a lot of these small blocks in the farming zone and get houses on those to address the housing shortage. And see, there's a couple of 100,000 here for affordable housing, and yeah, look, fantastic annual plan. So I commend that to my fellow councillors and all the viewers on YouTube. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Cordy. Other councillors? Okay, we have a motion in front of us. All those in favour of the motion, please raise your hand. That motion's carried. And thank you, Councillor Henderson. We always enjoy your introductions and your detail. It's fantastic. Excellent. Thank you. Appreciate it. Next item on the agenda, councillors, is item 9.3.5, which is the Fraud and Corruption Prevention Policy and Fraud and Corruption Control Plan. Councillor Gardner, would you like to introduce this one? Thank you.
Certainly. This report seeks council adoption of the updated Fraud and Corruption Prevention Policy and Fraud and Corruption Control Plan. The existing policy and plan were approved by council on 27th July 2021. And I'd like to make a recommendation as printed that the council adopts the Fraud and Corruption Prevention Policy and adopts the Fraud and Corruption Control Plan.
Thank you, Councillor. Do I have a second of that?
Seconded.
Councillor Mobley, thank you. Councillor Gardner, would you like to speak to your motion, please?
Yeah. There's no great mystery in this. So people see, fraud plans and think, oh my God, something's going on. Well, no, there isn't really. Basically, it's just to update the current plan to bring it in line with the Local Government Act. There's some items that are overdue, which will be adopted in the next few months. That's probably it, really. It's just to update our current plan.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Mobley. Would you like to speak to this or reserve your
I
right?
reserve my right.
Certainly. Councillors, any discussion? Points to comment? No? Okay. Councillor Maltby, right to speak.
Councillor Gardner's put it directly to you.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Gardner. You're right, right of reply.
No, good, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, councillors. We have a motion in front of us that council adopts the fraud and corruption prevention policy and adopts the fraud and corruption control plan. All those in favour of that motion, please raise your hand. The motion's carried. Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is item 9.3.6, which is the appointment of a new Audit and Risk Committee independent member, Councillor Cordy.
Thank you, Mayor. The purpose of this report is to seek the appointment of an independent committee member for Council's Audit and Risk Committee, following the departure of Ms. Nicole Cox. Nicole served the maximum allowable tenure of three-year terms as per the Audit and Risk Committee, and I will move the recommendation that Council, upon recommendation from the Audit and Risk Committee interview panel, which I was a member of it on this occasion, appoints Dr. Jolene Morse to the Audit and Risk Committee for the period 17th July 2024 to 16th July 2027. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Do I have a seconder? Councillor.
Seconded.
Thank you, Councillor Maltby. Councillor Cordy, would you just like to speak to your motion, please?
Yes, Mayor, it was my pleasure to serve on this committee to interview prospective applicants for this position, and they were high quality applicants. But Dr. Jolene Morse was an outstanding applicant, and she's got a PhD in risk management, so she's going to be a great appointment for our Audit and Risk Committee. And it's extremely high caliber candidates, and we've got a very good person in Dr. Moore. So happy to support that. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Cordy. Councillor Maltby, would you like to speak now?
I'll endorse Councillor Cordy's comments, and I'm sure the interview panel was very thorough and have selected the right person. I might just make a comment that there's no doubt the 9 years Nicole Cox did on the committee was very good. She was an excellent member.
Thank you, Councillor. Other councillors? Okay, Councillor Cordy, would you like to reply?
All good. Audit risk, very important, and it's great to see they're getting a top person.
Thank you, Councillor. So we have a motion in front of us that Council, upon recommendation from the Audit and Risk Committee interview panel, appoints Dr. Jolene Morse to the Audit and Risk Committee for the period 17th of July 2024 to the 16th of July 2027. All those in favour of that motion, please raise your hands. Sorry, that motion's carried. Thank you very much, councillors. Next item is item 9.3.7, which is the Audit and Risk Committee meeting minutes of the meeting held on 31st of May 2024. Councillor Gardner.
This report provides a mechanism for Council's Audit and Risk Committee to present the confidential minutes of the Audit and Risk Committee held on 31st of May 2024 to Council. And councillors, I just would recommend as printed, so the Council notes the confidential Audit and Risk Committee meeting minutes for the meeting held on 31st of May.
Thank you, Councillor. Do I have a second of that? Councillor Cordy. Any discussions? Okay, thank you. All those in favour, councillors. Okay, that brings us to item 10, which is delegates report. Councillors, any councillors who have a delegates report? Okay, I might move to you, CEO. That's okay.
Thank you very much, Mayor Driscoll. I've got a just a couple of items to reflect on that are included in the handout that is in front of you, councillors, and it's primarily to do with the visit that Mayor Driscoll and I had to Canberra. So we went to Canberra just over a week and a half ago now, and the purpose of that was to attend the National General Assembly, and that's over 530 councillors from across Australia all congregating on Canberra, so one of the best times to be in Canberra all year. And that is actually, that whole conference is held by Australian Local Government Association, also known as ALGA. So during that time, the Mayor and I attended a number of events. So we attended the National General Assembly welcome reception. We also attend the Municipal Association of Victoria's lab launch, which is a new creative idea and that was just for state government in Victoria. And then over the next coming days, we attended the National General Assembly, and not wanting to steal the thunder from the Mayor, but whilst we were in Canberra, we took the opportunity to visit 4 ministers. So an enormous thank you to Ministers Max Chandler-Mather, Minister Darren Chester, and we also, on a separate day, visited Minister Michael Sukkar and Minister Christy McBain. And most of those ministers, amongst many portfolios, also hold housing portfolios. So it was a very timely and opportunistic conversation with all ministers about our housing trust and all the efforts that council are leading with support from council officers with affordable housing. So I know that the Mayor will want to talk more on that, but I also would like to let councillors know, and also for everyone watching at home, which I'm sure that they are, just the exceptional effort that Mayor Driscoll went to. So not just with the ministers, but it was incredible to see the advocacy and the support that was extended by Mayor Driscoll about what the opportunities are for Mount Alexander Shire Council, also pretty much how great and fantastic we are and how we're leading the way, particularly in that housing space, but exceptional advocacy effort undertaken by Mayor Driscoll. And that was also extended to some of the conferences that we went to. So some of the questions that he posed to panel speakers at the plenary sessions was a real privilege to actually watch the Mayor advocate for the Shire. The last one that I will mention was something that a number of us attended today, which was the Taradale Youth Space official opening. So we had Mayor Driscoll, we had Councillor Christine Henderson, we also had our Director of Infrastructure, Michael Annear, and our Acting Director of Corporate Community Services, Rosalie Rogers, attend that. Absolute privilege to be there along with Mary-Ann Thomas, MP, obviously the Minister for Health, Health Infrastructure and Ambulance Services. So an enormous thank you to Mary-Ann Thomas and her staff for making that event today. But I also want to have a shout out to probably the coolest principal we might have in the Shire, which is Principal Christopher Burgess. He let the Taradale Primary School start school at the Taradale Youth Space so that they could attend that official opening. So thank you to all the staff and councillors that have been involved in that in that initiative. It looks fabulous. It's such a fantastic play space. It's somewhere that everyone of all ages can go in Taradale, but particularly the youth. We've now got a concrete space with many things to jump on and jump off. And yeah, I think it's certainly been applauded by the Taradale community. So that's all. Thank you, Mayor Driscoll.
Thank you, Acting CEO. So thank you for those kind words. And it was a busy week, so I really appreciated Acting CEO Knight's support in that. So some of the main things we spoke about and pleaded to the best of our ability was affordable housing and homelessness, aged care, and in particular, a couple of things that we're doing as a council in terms of the affordable housing and the Affordable Housing Trust and the ability to potentially build in the car park and the locations in Newstead and Malden. So they were pretty unique. So the ministers appreciated that, and hopefully we squeezed them hard enough to get some funds, but we'll see. Other things that I did was there's a Newstead Young Writers Festival coming up in the 20th of October, which is pretty unique. I think if you can get out there, there's not that we're rural sort of town. So they get writers from all around Australia, in fact, to go there over a weekend. And so that's pretty unique. So I think I just wanted to point that out. I had a meeting with them and they're moving forward with that on the 20th of October. I've had lots of meetings with potential potential candidates, which is really interesting. So there's a lot of diversity within that, which is great. So there's a few people interested to run, they've said. So we'll see how that goes. I had an ABC interview on the new housing trust, which was pretty good a few weeks ago. So we got that point across. So hopefully that'll go well. Councillor Anir and I attended also a session at the Shed Shaker about why local matters in terms of councillors to be coming up for election. And there was about 30, 40 people in there. So they were peppering us for questions. So that was pretty good. And there's another one of those things going on in Malden this weekend. And I've been starting, as many councillors have, listening posts. I had another Meet the Mayor listening post on the weekend, which was good on Saturday, and that went well. And lastly, I attended the AGM for one of our asset committees, the John Power Reserve Committee. I run AGM and committee. That's about it. Late call, any other councillors? Yeah, Councillor McClure, go for it.
I had the pleasure, Mayor, of attending the AGM of the Camp Reserve Committee on Monday night, where they elected all their office bearers. Pretty well turned over the same people for the next 12 months, which is great to see. The enthusiasm in the room. They also elected additional members on that committee. Very enthusiastic committee, well represented by all the user bodies that use that reserve. And no, they're a great group of people. So I enjoyed that. And again, it was a good AGM. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. So that's my shout out to those asset committees there. That they do a great job, and council wouldn't be able to do as much work as we do without those committees. So I want to thank you, because some of the AGMs are coming up. That's it. So that brings us to item 11, which is a notice of motion. Councillor Henderson.
Yes, this is the moment we've all been waiting for. Yeah? A few of us have anyway. So this notice of motion is to request the Minister for Roads and Road Safety to reconsider the starting point of the 50 km/h speed zone on the Pyrenees Highway. And I read my motion out and then I look for a seconder. Right, okay. So I move that the Chief Executive Officer write to the Minister for Roads and Road Safety to request the Department of Transport and Planning, DTP, to consider the relocation of the eastern starting point of the 50 km/h speed zone from White Gum Track to approximately 300 metres east of the Pyrenees Highway. Continue. The 300 metres east of the Pyrenees Highway and Mitchell Street intersection. Should this change be deemed unacceptable, the DTP is requested to hold a community meeting for the residents of Elphinstone, Chewton and surrounds to inform of the rationale of the eastern start of the 50 km/h speed zone change, including the outcomes of the recent review, and to answer any further questions.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. Do I have a second for that motion? Councillor McClure. Thank you. Councillor Henderson, would you like to speak to your motion, please?
Thank you. Well, we certainly, in public question time or public time, we did have one gentleman ask, who chose White Gum Track and why? And it's a really very good question, but look, I think there was good advice from our director. Don't focus on the history, because that's when the doors slam shut. And believe me, they're very big and very firmly locked doors. So best not to ask that question why too much, but just to focus on the fact that it might not be the best place in the middle of a nice rural, gently winding highway to change the speed limit from 80 to 50. It's totally inexplicable to anyone approaching it for the first time or the 10th time, or I'm probably coming up for my 50th time now, if not more. And each time I see it, I go, oh, what? This is silly. And I don't think I'm alone. In fact, I know I'm not alone because there are many, many people who are upset, outraged, and quite concerned about it. I think the most recent call I had was from a resident of the new 50 zone. So what used to be 80 coming into Tewton, now 50. You'd think she'd be happy, but no, she said, my life is horrible. I hate it. There's so much road rage outside my house, and those houses are well set back. So it must be pretty loud road rage and pretty scary driving. So every person, every driver who approaches the 50-kilometre-an-hour limit and obediently slows to 50 can have a car behind them who does not agree and who then treats that car in front of them as being the author of this 50-kilometre limit. And therefore, they're going to sit behind them as so close as to make them terrified and therefore hopefully speed up. But no, there you go. That's what happens. So we have road rage, we have people tailgating very seriously, overtaking inappropriately, and it is getting it hasn't settled down, I think is fair to say. Even those of us who've gone, oh, well, whatever, 50-kilometre-an-hour, it's not that so much, and okay, might be 18 hours over the course of a year, but I'm sure I can throw away 18 hours very easily over the course of the year, just looking at Facebook. So probably 180 hours. So it's just unreasonable, it's silly, and the community are finding it very hard to cope with the fallout from it. And we would really respectfully beg the minister to reconsider the starting point in the interest of harmony in the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor McClure, would you like to speak to this or reserve your right?
Thanks. No, thanks, Mayor. I'd just like to add, yeah, look, I've been on council for 3.5 years or something to this point in time, and I don't think I've seen an issue that's raised as much interest and comment, negative comment, as this one has. We've seen since introduction of this thing, and I don't understand it, as do many of the people out in the community understand why why the reason was made, and I'd be interested to understand why. And I think that's probably one of the pertinent points is that DTP haven't adequately to anybody explained the rationale between extending that speed limit out another kilometre or so, or kilometre and a half, or whatever it is. So I think the residents of these communities, Elphinstone, Tewton and surrounding, deserve some explanation as to the rationale behind this thing, because nobody understands it, and certainly the length of the amount of angst that we've seen in the community in regards to this is a good reason to ask some serious questions about it. And I applaud Councillor Henderson for moving this motion. Thank you.
Other councillors? Okay, Councillor Henderson, you have a right to reply. Anything else you want to say?
I think I've probably said enough. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion in front of us. All those in favour of that motion, please raise your hand. Thank you, councillor. That motion's carried. Excellent. Next item 12, urgent special business, which is none. Item 13, confidential items, which is none. And just before I close, I just want to thank Acting CEO Knight for her wonderful support since the CEO's been away, and I've really appreciated it. We haven't missed a beat, so it's fantastic. Meeting closed. Thank you, everybody.